Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. Its-A-Mii here once again. Today I'm going to be giving you my review of Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club for the Nintendo Switch. Now I would like to give a huge thank you to my friends over at Nintendo for providing me with a free game code for this game so I can make a review for you all, but also, you all know me, I was going to cover this game anyway. They approached me, they were like, hey, do you want to review this game? And do you want a code for it? And I was like, yeah, of course, I want to work with you, Nintendo, that's awesome. I also did buy my own copy of the game so I can have a physical version as well, so keep that in mind. But yes, I want to give a huge thank you to them for sending a code over. Now, I'll say this right off the bat. The announcement of Emio had me very, very intrigued. The moment they posted that teaser of the strange man in a trench coat with a paper bag over his head, I was immediately like, okay, what is Nintendo doing here? Because it was marketing for a game like we had never seen before from this company. And then a week later, we found out it was actually a new Famicom Detective Club game, the first new entry in over 30 years, I believe. Now, at that time, I had not played the remakes that came out on the Switch back in 2021, so I immediately did so, and I posted a video on those. You can go check out my review of the first two games in the series. Here I have the special edition from Japan. I'm actually going to be doing an unboxing of the Japanese special edition for Emio, so subscribe if you want to see that here in a couple of days. But it was my first time playing those games, and it was really my first time truly being exposed to the Famicom Detective Club series, a very old series that Nintendo has not really touched in a very long time. So when they announced this new entry, I was just like, okay, cool. Nintendo's bringing back this very dead franchise, and that is just awesome. Now, for those worried about spoilers, this video will only use footage from the opening 4 chapters of the game, and I will specifically not include anything that I deem spoilery. The first 3 chapters of this game are available in a free demo on the Nintendo eShop, so if you want to play that and then come back to this video, you can totally do that. Here's my overall take on Emio the Smiling Man. If you like the first 2 games, this is the best one. This is the best Famicom Detective Club game, and I don't really think it's close. It improves upon every aspect from story, characters, presentation, music, gameplay. Just everything about this game is better than the others. If you didn't like the remakes that came out back in 2021, this game might not be for you because it is still very similar. It is a very tried and true, very classic style adventure game visual novel from Nintendo, but it is worth noting that you do not need to play the other 2 games to jump into Emio. Though if you are interested, I definitely recommend playing those 2 first and then going to Emio, because if you have a save file in those games, it kind of carries some stuff over. They have some nods to those 2 original games in Emio. So if you're interested in the series, I would say try out those games first. But if you don't want to take the plunge, if you don't want to spend the $50 on a digital copy of the remakes that came out back in 2021, there is a demo, so if you just want to, kind of dip your toes in there, that's completely fine. One of the things I was most curious about going into Emio was the M rating this game has. Nintendo has never had its internal teams involved with an M-rated game before, but with EPD's very own Yoshio Sakamoto helming the script and Mages handling the bulk of pretty much everything else, I had to see what an M-rated Nintendo game would look like. Now, obviously I won't get into spoilers here, but this is easily the darkest game that Nintendo has ever released. There was a point in the story as I was about halfway through where I was kind of thinking to myself, like, I mean, this is dark for a Nintendo game, but I was kind of hoping it to be, like, really dark, like, really, really traumatic stuff. And I think for me, this game did deliver in the end from that angle. I'll talk more about my feelings on the ending later, without spoilers, of course. But yes, this game is pretty dark, even if it does carry a lot of the lighthearted writing elements from the previous 2 games. A lot of the characters are very goofy in what is a very serious situation. But when the game wants to punch you in the gut and make you feel very sad for the characters, it does a great job of doing that. Emio the Smiling Man's story kicks off when the body of a junior in high school is found alongside the road with a paper bag over his head. This entire case bears a striking resemblance to an urban legend that started 18 years ago that claims a man in a trench coat and smiling paper bag mask would offer crying girls happiness in exchange for their lives. Very dark for a Nintendo game. Naturally, like the other 2 entries in the series, it's up to the Utsugi Detective Agency to solve this case and figure out how everything ties together, and I'll say now that I think this game has fantastic pacing. I was hooked pretty much immediately from chapter 1 of the demo, and I really can't say the same about the other 2 games, though I did find myself enjoying the girl who stands behind pretty early on. I talked about that in my review for that game. But yeah, the pacing in this game is just fantastic, and the end to every single chapter kept me wanting more. Every chapter has this really nice flow where at the start of the day, the main character will go investigate either some urban legends at a library, or will go talk to this old lady to get some information. But then towards the end of the day, something more exciting might happen, and then at the end of everything, you go back to your actual kind of headquarters, your detective agency headquarters, and just review your information, which is a really nice way to make it feel like every single chapter has something substantial happening in it, which it does, but having that section at the end where you review all the information with Ayumi is just really nice, because it's like, okay, wow, a lot happened today in the game. It gives you a nice bit of time to just kind of reflect and really think about what you've learned. Emio is a bit longer than the remakes as well, taking me about 10 to 12 hours, I want to say, to finish. And also, brief aside, I really like how Nintendo rolled out the demo for this. They released 3 chapters over the course of a week, and having that time to dissect each chapter, kind of talk with friends and people on forums was just a lot of fun. It was kind of like watching a weekly TV series or something, but just through the chapters of a Nintendo visual novel, which was just really cool. I think Emio's greatest strength lies in its characters, though. I like the characters in the first 2 games and the remakes that came out back in 2021, but it felt like something was missing. Like, I like the main character a lot, and there were characters like the butler in the first game that I enjoyed, as well as some characters in the prequel, right? But this game kind of elevates it to an entirely new level. Maybe that's because I've played those 2 remakes, so I'm already kind of acquainted with the core cast. But even the new characters, the support characters in this game, I think are fantastic. But the main character, who is, whatever you choose to name him, as well as Its-A-Mii, have been elevated to just a totally, completely other level versus the other 2 games in the series. Its-A-Mii especially, I was really happy to see how much of a focus she has in this game. In the other 2, she's kind of just mostly in the background, but in this game, there are actually a lot of sections where you just play as her, and you get to see what she's doing while the main character is off doing his thing. So I'm really happy that this game makes the main character and Its-A-Mii kind of feel equal in a sense, even though there's still definitely more main character stuff. But the point is, Its-A-Mii gets a way bigger focus, and that made me very, very happy. And like I said, the supporting cast in this game is very, very well written. In particular, I want to shout out my boy Kamihara, who you'll meet pretty early in the game. Just a great character that sets himself apart in a cast that was already fantastic. If you've seen footage of the first 2 games that got remade back in 2021, you'll know that Mages did a fantastic job kind of modernizing these games and making them look very, very pretty. This game looks even better. There's way more, variety in animations and backgrounds. Characters move very naturally, which helps just everything kind of come to life, and that's amplified by a fantastic OST and a great Japanese voice cast. This game is a visual and audible treat. Though I will say, if you are looking for an English dub for this game, that does not exist. I generally prefer English dubs, I will admit, but playing through the remakes of the first 2 games, I'm already kind of used to the Japanese cast for this game, so it wasn't a huge issue for me, though it would have been nice to have the option. I know a lot of people do prefer having that English option, so it is a bit of a shame that it's not here. The gameplay in Emio has also been improved quite a bit in my opinion. My main issue with the first game specifically, the missing air, although it also did persist a little bit in the Girl Who Stands Behind, my main issue was those games kind of had this progression where a lot of the times it felt like you kind of just had to beat your head against a brick wall to kind of progress, to force progression. Basically just spamming text options to figure out which one you need to do. Sometimes it was very cryptic and you had to go to this area, observe this object, observe it again, then talk to this NPC 3 times in a row, and then you'll progress and find the right option to move forward. This game flows much more naturally. Conversations flow much more seamlessly than before, and they kind of just nudge you in the right direction without it really feeling like they are, overdoing it. It's not blatantly obvious that they're telling you what to do. There is an option to have certain parts of the text pop up in yellow to kind of, once again, help nudge you in the right direction, make sure you pick the right dialogue choices. And for purists who don't want to have that, you can turn that option off. But for me, someone who is new to these types of visual novels and adventure games, I really appreciated that, because that was my least favorite thing about the other 2 games, is how progression sometimes kind of stalled because these are Famicom games. The original 2 were, right? So they felt a little archaic in their design. Emio basically nullifies that for me completely. I will say, from reading impressions from people that played the first 3 chapters of the game through the demo, as well as reading some reviews from major outlets that came out yesterday, it doesn't seem as though this has been nullified for everybody. For me, as someone who did have those issues with the first 2 games, I did not have really any issue at any point with Emio when it came to progression. There may have been a few times in the entire, 10, 12-hour game where I was like, okay, what option do I need to select in the text menu to actually get this thing to progress? But it didn't feel like an issue at all compared to the first games. And usually the times where it did happen, where I was like, okay, what do I need to, press to progress? The game was actually kind of making fun of it. Like this one section very early on in the game where you're waiting at a bus stop, and they were clearly trying to make it feel like you were waiting for the bus, and, you're just sitting there kind of alone. And, the main character's yelling out to the, void of nothingness and these mountains behind him. So in that instance, yes, you're going to be pressing every text option you have, possibly multiple times, just to see what happens. But that was kind of the fun of it. The other games, it wasn't fun to just press the same button over and over. But in this game, when those sections popped up, for me at least, it was just usually in a funny scenario where it was like, okay, well, they obviously want me to do this right now. But everyone's experience will be different. I will say, though, for me, obviously this is my review, I did not have those same issues like with the first 2 games. Now, in the other 2 games, you did have a bit more freedom to travel between areas. There's a few sections like that here where you can travel between business districts and that kind of thing, but for the most part, this game is entirely linear. I know some people might not like that, but Once again, because I didn't love the progression system in the first two games, I really did like this change. Once again, no spoilers here, but one of the things that was talked about in the initial reveal for this game, where they kind of had this interview dev diary with Yoshio Sakamoto, he mentioned towards the end of that video that the ending of this game might be divisive. Now, I did really like the ending. I could see, once again, I could see where he means this will be a divisive ending for some people. But I will say, there was a moment at the very end, or towards the end, right, where they're kind of doing all the plot twists as you expect from a visual novel. There was a moment where I was like, huh? Like, oh, okay, I guess. That's what's gonna happen with the end of the game, but it does manage to wrap everything up nicely by the time the credits rolled. And by the time the credits rolled, I was fully content with the extremely sad story I had just experienced. But yes, I do understand what Sakamoto meant when he said the ending to this game might be a little divisive. I can see what he meant by that. So yeah, Emio the Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club, that is a mouthful of a title. I really enjoyed this game, a series that I really had no experience with up until very recently. This new entry came out, and it was one of my favorite games of the year so far. I mean, to be honest, 2024 has been kind of slow for me up to this point. I think the next, few weeks and months have a lot of very exciting games that will probably end up on my top 10 GOTY list, but Famicom Detective Club is definitely in the running. Like, this is definitely one of my favorite games that I've played this year. And I think it being announced out of nowhere, and me not having played the original games until this month, and really not having any expectations of what this series even was until very recently, just made my entire experience with Famicom Detective Club, this new entry, it just made everything more enjoyable for me. And I said in my video about the remakes that Famicom Detective Club is the Switch generation's greatest surprise from Nintendo, and I totally think that's true, and Emio the Smiling Man, I think, just solidifies that thought even more. I'm extremely happy that Nintendo gave funding to Sakamoto and Mages and let them make this very dark, very niche visual novel adventure game that realistically is not going to sell very well, right? I'm always analyzing these things, and I can't imagine this game is exactly going to light the charts on fire, so the fact that they gave them the chance to make a third Famicom Detective Club game just makes me very happy, and if this is the final game in the series, that's cool with me, because they ended on an absolute banger, but I will say, now that I've played all three, and this one's really good, I would like to see another one, Nintendo. If you want to fund Sakamoto again, to have him make a fourth, I'd be there for it. But with all that said, that is going to do it for today's review. Of course, if you are planning on picking up Emio the Smiling Man, let me know in the comments down below. If you've played the demo, let me know what you think of the demo. And in general, let me know what you think of this series, this very niche franchise that Nintendo has, for whatever reason, decided to bring back on the Switch, which is just really cool. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo reviews, collecting videos, all that fun stuff. Follow my main channel at BoTalksGames. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. And until next time, folks, peace.